How's everybody doing? Before I get started talking about the top 5 moves the Mets should make post-lockup, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Alright, guys, so don't forget to stick to the end of the video so you see the top 5 from number 5 to number 1 on post-lockout moves the Mets should think about making to improve this roster to be a playoff contender and World Series contender as well. So we're going to go through 5 all the way down to the number 1 move that the New York Mets should make in regards to trades or free agency. So we are going to start right now with number 5. Number 5 on the list that I think everybody has been talking about over the last month or two, post-lockout and pre-lockout, and that is Taylor Rogers of the Minnesota Twins. Now, trading for Taylor Rogers, who is a reliever for the Twins, will be a very good move for the New York Mets because the Mets do need bullpen arms. They don't really need a closer. They don't really need a long man. But they do need somebody in the middle to end of the game type of reliever. And specifically a lefty, which Taylor Rogers is. Obviously, the New York Mets lost out on Aaron Luke. Technically, they didn't offer him a contract. But they do need a lefty in this bullpen who is pretty darn good. And somebody who can pitch in the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings leading towards Edwin Diaz. Taylor Rogers is one of the perfect options out there because I do not like a lot of the free agents that are available for the bullpen. You can call about Tapia, you can call about Chafin, you can talk about Jansen, you can talk about Brad Hand. None of those moves excite me. Taylor Rogers does excite me. Why? Because one, he's a lefty. I think he's better than he was with his 3.35 ERA in 40 innings. He did have a little bit of an injury concern later in the year, which lowered his innings for his 2021 season. But I do like him. I think a 3.35 is very good for a reliever. And going to the National League, even with the DH, I do think is going to lower his ERA to around 3 for the New York Mets. He had 59 strikeouts in 40 games. And I do think Taylor Rogers would be the perfect guy to fill in that bullpen with Trevor May, Seth Lugo, Miguel Castro. Would be a good addition, especially focusing in on the Mets need a left-handed pitcher in that bullpen. So that is number 5. He has 1 year left on his contract, guys, at $6.25 million at the age of 31. So you got a reasonable amount of salary on his contract throwing into that bullpen and will be your primary lefty in this bullpen. So at number 5 comes Taylor Rogers. At number 4 is the Oakland A's pitcher Sean Manaea. At the age of 30, he had a 3.91 ERA with 179.1 innings pitched, 32 games, a win-loss record of 11-10, 194 strikeouts, and he has 1 year left on his contract at $10.2 million. And we all know with the Oakland A's, what do they like to do? Shed payroll. No matter who the player is, you can hear about Matt Olson, Matt Chapman. You can hear about Sean Manaea, Frank Bassett. You go on and on and on with the amount of players that are that the Oakland A's are going to be trading, or most likely going to be trading, just to shed the payroll, because that's what the Oakland A's do. Billy Beane loves it. He loves his prospects. He loves cheap players. And those are the reasons why Sean Manaea are probably one of the guys that are going to be moving post-lockout. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets look into a trade for Sean Manaea. And what would the Mets have to probably give up for Sean Manaea? I would think probably somebody who's an everyday player like a Jeff McNeil. If straight up, probably not. You might have to give another top 15 prospect. You know, I would think somebody maybe like in regards like a Diaz or a Ramirez, something like that, but nothing too crazy where you would have to give up because he is a rental for 1 year. So it's a possibility that they might want a Jeff McNeil straight up. who has 3 years left on his contract at a very reasonable price, less than Sean Manaea is making right now. So Sean Manaea is an interesting situation for the New York Mets because at the moment, the only lefty the New York Mets have is David Peterson. And coming off of injury, we really don't know what David Peterson is going to bring to the table in this rotation. Sean Manaea will fit well in this rotation as one of the lefties, or the only lefty for that matter. It would make a lot of sense if the Mets don't go the free agent route for a starting pitcher. Sean Manaea is an absolute real deal that can be a number 3 solid, or definitely a solid number 4 in this Mets rotation. Obviously, the Mets might have to give up Jeff McNeil, but in my opinion, Jeff McNeil is on the way out anyway, so why not get a pitcher who I think can be fitting well in this rotation. So at number 4 comes Sean Manaea of the Oakland A's. Coming in at number 3 on the list is the Cincinnati Reds star pitcher Luis Castillo. Now, some people are 50-50 on Luis Castillo. They don't think he is good as he was a couple of years ago. Some think he's a stud and just needs a change of scenery. Once again, it is a trade scenario for the New York Mets. I do think Luis Castillo would make this rotation one of the best rotations in all of baseball. And I wouldn't be surprised the New York Mets look at this trade option, because not only does it actually look good on paper for the New York Mets, but if you can get the Luis Castillo of the second half of the year in 2021, having DeGrom, Scherzer, and Castillo at the top of your rotation is no doubt a dangerous rotation that nobody will want to face in the playoffs. And on top of that, it not only makes it hard for teams to face the Mets with the top 3 in that rotation, but what it does, it pushes everybody back. Taijuan Walker would be a 4th starter. Carlos Carrasco will be a 5th starter. And now you have Tyler McGill that can be your long man in the bullpen and a spot start here and there, who is very good as well. So that moves everybody back, makes it a rotation much stronger, and have depth in the starting rotation just in case of an injury. So that is a really good, interesting piece that you have to look at with Luis Castillo. And the other thing you have to look out with Luis Castillo is that he has 2 years left on his deal at a $7.25 million in 2022, and he's arbitration eligible for 2023. So the Mets would have him for 2 years, but it's not going to come cheap in a trade for Luis Castillo. It's pretty sure that McNeil and probably 2 top prospects in the Mets system will probably get it done for the Reds to trade Luis Castillo to the Mets. Maybe we can get by with a Jeff McNeil and a Ronnie Mauricio in a 2-package deal going to the Reds, or you can put McNeil, Mauricio, and maybe a top 15 prospect as well, or maybe someone like a JT Ginn. That is a lot to give up, but you do have him for 2 more years, and if he shows what he showed in the second half of 2021, then you got a real gem on your hands in this rotation for the next 2 years, and is also a backup plan just in case if Jacob deGrom is hurt or Max Scherzer gets hurt. Luis Castillo can definitely step right in. And with his stats not looking great in 2021, but still reasonable at 3.98 ERA with 33 games and a win-loss record of 8-16, but he was with the Reds, so wins-loss record is irrelevant at this point. 187.2 innings and 192 strikeouts for 2021. Luis Castillo is the guy to get if the Mets are willing to make a trade, considering it's going to cost them a decent amount. But I do think the Mets can get away with McNeil and Mauricio because you give him an everyday player that is cheap, who has 3 years left on his contract in McNeil, and Ronnie Mauricio, who's going to be a stud at shortstop. Giving them to the Reds should be able to get it done. Yes, there is competition for Luis Castillo, but I think the Mets are going to be aggressive, especially if they don't get what they want in the free agent market. The Mets need to get another arm in this rotation, no doubt about it. And the trade route for Luis Castillo is one of the top ones that I think the Mets can look at post-lockout to help out this rotation going forward. Coming in at number 2 on the list is a free agent that pitched for the Chicago White Sox, and that is no other than Carlos Rodon. Carlos Rodon, when healthy, keyword is when healthy, is extremely good pitcher. Left-handed pitcher. Obviously, the Mets need a left-handed pitcher that I spoke about with Sean Manaea as well. Getting a left-hander who can be dominant when healthy and basically can be an ace of a staff if healthy. But there is injury concerns for Carlos Rodon. And considering what the Mets have to deal with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, and let's be honest, guys, they are question marks. They are injury prone. They're probably going to miss some time this year. Carlos Rodon is a high-risk type of free agent pickup. But if we can find a way to keep him healthy, and let's be honest, guys, he wasn't really healthy when he didn't have to bat and run the bases since he was in the AL. He won't have to do that in the NL. Maybe that will keep him healthy. Who knows? But considering his injury history, I do think it's still a risk the Mets should be willing to take. Only because if you can get the dominance of Carlos Rodon with the health, he is a force to be reckoned with, guys. He had an ERA of 2.37, a 13-5 win-loss record, 24 games, 132.2 innings pitched, and 185 strikeouts in just 24 games. Now, again, he was injured for some of it. That's why he didn't pitch a lot of games. But if we can creep him up to the 28 games or 29 games started, I think that really puts focus on Carlos Rodon and why the Mets can take that big risk with Carlos Rodon. And when you look at it, like, what would the Mets have to give him as a contract to entice him to come wear the orange and blue? I'm thinking somewhere between 3 to 4 years, between a range of $70 million and $80 million. I know that's a steep price, but let's be honest, guys. Even guys who are not that good are getting $12, $13, $14 million. And a guy like Carlos Rodon, who had a good season, even though there was injuries, are getting between $16 to $20 million plus for guys who are middle of the pack. So Carlos Rodon is going to get paid, but I think the key here is the years, not really the AAV, the years. And I think 4 years will get it done at around $80 million, which is $20 million per year. I think that's what you can get for Carlos Rodon. I think the Mets are going to be aggressive post-lockout. I feel like they're going to get a big bat, and they are going to get a big arm. And Carlos Rodon fits in that big arm category. And if the Mets are willing to pay, which they seem like they are, pushing that payroll of $300 million projected, Carlos Rodon is the perfect guy to get when you focus on the free agent market for the New York Mets and willing to spend money. And the number one post-lockout move the New York Mets should make, considering what they need on this roster, is none other than my favorite candidate, Kris Bryant. Kris Bryant is no doubt the number one choice post-lockout move for the New York Mets. In that regards to pitching and position player, Kris Bryant is the guy to get. Not only is his versatility playing anywhere on the field, minus catcher and probably center field, but he can even play center field at worst case scenario. But the Mets ain't looking for him to play center field. You can put him in right field. You can put him in left field, third base, second base, first base. There are so many options the Mets can use Kris Bryant, along with the DH that's going to be in the National League. Kris Bryant has so much versatility that is so beneficial for the New York Mets alone, not even counting his offensive stats. So that versatility is a big thing for the New York Mets, because you can put him at third base right away, and if Brett Baty shows what he can do in the minor leagues and the Mets are willing to bring him up in the second half of next year or into the 2023 season, you can easily move Kris Bryant to the outfield, no doubt about it. Kris Bryant last year had a .265 average with 25 home runs and 73 RBIs in 144 games between the Cubs and the Giants. I do think if you get this production that you saw in 2021, it's perfectly fine. You put him in the middle of that lineup. Not a lot of guys had 25 home run years for the New York Mets other than Pete Alonso. So filling that spot, putting him with some protection with Pete Alonso or protecting Pete Alonso in this lineup, Kris Bryant is perfect for this lineup as well, batting him third or fifth in this lineup. either before Pete Alonso or after Pete Alonso, is a big bat the Mets are willing to pay to put in this lineup, because the Mets do need another big bat in this lineup. We don't have a lot of power in this lineup, guys. If you go across the lineup, Nimmo's not a power hitter, Marte's not a power hitter, Escobar's not a power hitter, James McCann is not a power hitter. There's not really many power hitters out there. I don't consider Lindor a power hitter, even though he can reach up to 25 home runs. I still see Lindor as a gap-to-gap hitter who's going to drive in runs with doubles and singles, not necessarily home runs. Why? Because Kris Bryant is the guy to get in free agency. The number one target the Mets need to make post-lockout is Kris Bryant, guys. So what type of contract you can be looking at for Kris Bryant? I do think 5 years is the minimum to even entice him to even have a conversation with that team, especially the Mets. So I think a 5 or 6 year deal ranging from $140 to $170 million. That is a $30 million gap, but I do think AAV is a big key here for Kris Bryant. And 5 or 6 years, no matter what the total is in amount of years, I think AAV is a big key. I think 5 to 6 years, between $24 and $27 million is going to get it done for Kris Bryant. And I do think, I will not be shocked, guys, if the New York Mets make Kris Bryant priority number one post-lockout. Kris Bryant is the guy to get, guys. There's no doubt about it. So running through the list of the top 5, Taylor Rogers, Sean Manaea, number 4, Luis Castillo, number 3, Carlos Rodon, number 2, and the big-time number 1, Kris Bryant. There is some notable mentions that we can talk about as well really quickly. Nick Castellanos, Clayton Kershaw, Matt Chapman, Jose Ramirez, and Josh Hader. I think all of these guys are obviously options. There is some question about Nick Castellanos and the draft pick attached to him, but we don't know if the rule will go into effect this year or next year. But some talk saying that it could just go into effect right away when the lockout ends. Then Nick Castellanos is on the board for the New York Mets. Clayton Kershaw, on the other hand, with that back issue, scares me a little bit. He's going to get north of $20 million, and I don't know if the Mets are going to go that route. Matt Chapman, obviously, you have to trade for, and it might cost you a little bit. That might be a package with Sean Manaea, but that's something to look forward to post-lockout. Jose Ramirez is no doubt about it one of the best third basemen in the league, but are the Mets willing to trade prospects and pieces on their Major League roster to get Jose Ramirez, knowing Brett Baty is coming up the depth chart really quickly, and Jose Ramirez doesn't play anywhere else on the infield, so it's going to be hard to move him if Brett Baty is ready in the second half of this year or 2023. So that I don't think is really going to happen, but it's good to mention Jose Ramirez because people have talked about that with the Mets and the Indians, with the Guardians in a trade scenario. And lastly is Josh Hader. A lot of people think that the Mets are going to go after Josh Hader. I don't think they're going to go after him at all. But again, once again, it's going to mention Josh Hader because people are fascinated by Josh Hader's skills and the way he pitches closing games for the Milwaukee Brewers, and he's a lefty. But I do think the Mets are set on Edwin Diaz as their closer. It's just a matter of putting the pieces around them in the bullpen that is going to pitch before him in the 5th, 6th, or 7th inning. So Josh Hader, I don't think is going to be... is not knocking my top 5, that's for sure. And I do think Taylor Rogers is a better option because he fits well in the 6th through 8th role in innings role when it comes to the bullpen. So that is your notable mentions, guys. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy all my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Let me know in the comments what you think of my top 5. Taylor Rogers, Sean Manaea, Luis Castillo, Carlos Rodon, and Kris Bryant. If you have anybody else that I have not mentioned, or you think my list should be changed with different players, let me know in the comments, guys. I really appreciate all the support, guys. And as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.